Safe and sound at home again. Let the waters roar, Jack. Safe and sound at home again. Let the waters roar, Jack. Long we've tossed on the rolling main. Now we're safe ashore, Jack. Don't forget your old shipmate. Folly, rolly, 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 rido.
Welcome to Cohasset Political Society's Open Forum. I am AAAAAAAMBY TIERNY. Today I'm joined by John Keenan, Jack Fector, Josh Rosen, and Marcus Rowland. Today we're going to be discussing the latest news in the fact that Hillary Clinton has been re-investigated by the FBI. There's new emails coming out, and allegedly the FBI has new evidence that allows them to reopen the investigation towards Hillary Clinton. So, John, as our resident Trump supporter, what do you have to say?
This is probably a gift from God, as it were. Trump, without this, he stood no chance, but now I think he has momentum again, as it were. So I think he has a good shot at winning.
Yeah, as of today, since yesterday, Hillary Clinton has dropped 0.7% in the polls. However, she hasn't dropped that much in the Electoral College projections.
Yes.
I don't think the emails will actually end up affecting the election. It's just more news.
I think if you look at the percent chance of whose candidate it is, percent chance to win the vote, Trump went from single digits and now he's up into mid-20s now in percent chance to win the election in the span of the last 4 days.
Fantastic chance.
Yeah.
But mid 20% chance a week before the election is really no chance at all.
But it did quadruple because of the scandal.
Yeah, but some other huge news event could happen and completely throw off the news cycle that's been pro-Trump.
Yeah, that's what we're all waiting for, as it were.
How long until Trump says of some outrageous thing in a rally? And that's what the news covers now instead of the FBI.
I don't think he really has to go to the realm of outrageous at this point, because he's Hillary was she was just gonna coast in to the White House. She still is pretty much. I think she still pretty much has it locked up, but it did get significantly tougher for her, her image-wise after the scandal, and Trump definitely has more of a shot as he's gaining in the polls on her.
I think it's more of it will help him regain his support among strong Republicans who maybe started turning away from him after his comments after the leaked tape. I think they're saying, "Oh my gosh, she's so much worse than him. We have to vote Trump now." I think that's more of the response that's happening.
It definitely stemmed the bleeding of the Republican Party just bailing on him, but I don't think it's gonna change.
Well, I think it was already stemmed after his second and third debate performance. I think right now it's him trying to recoalesce it.
If there's been one constant in this election, it's that Trump gets closer to Hillary in the polls, he gets cocky, he says some outrageous thing, and goes off script and doesn't listen to his advisors. How long do we have until he does the exact same thing?
I'd give it 2 or 3 days at this
Well,
point.
when the election's in what, a week?
8 days.
Yeah.
8 days?
I think
9?
It's
A week.
on the 9th, so
No.
it's 10 days.
Yeah,
10
so it's in
days.
10 days from now.
Yeah.
So
Let's go. I'm ready.
at this point, I think he just has to not mess up and just hope for the best, honestly, because Hillary Clinton has a pretty easy shot to the White House at this point.
People have talked a lot about the Brexit effect, especially the Trump side, in that during the English Brexit vote, the polls had the Remain vote winning the vote, but it ended up that the Brexiteers won. And people are saying that something similar is going to happen with Trump, given the similarity between the Leave campaign in Britain and Trump's campaign here.
Well, the polling
I'm
for
ready to go.
the polling for the Brexit was within the margin of error.
As it is now.
It
For
depends on
now.
the state you're in.
Also, it's
Nationally.
it's totally real. There are people out there who don't want to say they're voting for Trump,
Yeah.
but most of them probably live in blue states that Hillary is going to win anyway. So if most of the people who are going to secretly vote for Trump are living in Massachusetts, and when they go out and vote for Trump, there's not enough of them that Trump's only going to win the state and throw off the Electoral College.
Yeah, so the voting system's completely different than in the Brexit vote, because they didn't have the Electoral College or anything to.
It was a vote for a vote. whatever happened won it.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, we should be talking about, are there people in swing states that say or aren't saying they like Trump?
But if Hillary wins the popular vote, or if Trump wins the popular vote and he doesn't win the Electoral College, I think that'll certainly fuel the fire that he's planning on starting if he loses.
Yeah, he's gonna like tweet something, but the second he's no longer the Republican nominee and is no longer contender for president, everything he says has a lot less credit to it, and the news will stop covering it this much. There's not going to be an American Revolution because of this.
People are too lazy to do something like that.
Do you think that Trump TV is actually going to happen?
Yeah, I do.
I think that if he were to win the popular vote, as you were saying, Amby, but lose the Electoral College, I think that would delegitimize Hillary Clinton's presidency in the eyes of all Republican voters and all the independents that voted for him. I think, and also with this FBI investigation, people would just not even listen to anything she had to say. She would have no chance of
I think people are already
coalescing America.
But the
I think
same
people
thing
are
happened
already-
in 2000 between Al Gore and Bush, and people still.
But Al Gore didn't have a FBI criminal investigation on him.
Yeah, I think also people are they're pretty wary because of the whole like Bernie Sanders vote thing, and they think that it possibly could have been rigged in states like California against Bernie Sanders. And I know Trump has gone out and said that it's like rigged and that he like may or may not accept the results, but it's I think it would definitely bring more awareness to like the effectiveness of the system.
There are I don't want to say significant amount of people, but there are certainly people out there that do believe it's rigged.
Like Donald Trump, or
No,
is there a significant portion of the population?
I don't want to say significant, but there are certainly Donald Trump supporters who actually believe it is rigged and are not just saying that because they're like repeating what Trump says. They actually believe it's rigged. They live in communities in areas where everyone they know is a Trump supporter, and they can't fathom someone voting for Hillary.
That is a true statement.
I know people. I don't want to name names. I have family that believes it's rigged and who are probably doing the opposite of what Trump hoped to get done, but they're saying they're not going to vote because they don't believe their vote really matters.
Yeah, I think that just goes along with like the tides of this campaign where you have like Bernie and Trump as like they're like hitting a vein of like anger in America towards like the system and towards the lack of things they've been getting done in Congress and Washington D.C. And I think that it's just like the vein of just people that they're just gonna stick with their ways, and like that's why he's sustained like a block of the Republican Party.
The anger at our ineffective government is new. Is it the least effective government ever in American history, our Congress?
It's pretty ineffective.
I think it probably is. But every time there's an outsider, well, not outsider candidate, every time, the other party, the Democrats are in power and the Republicans are the other party trying to win power, they always do the outside perspective. They always say they're going to fix Washington. So that's not new and specific to this election.
But what I do think is new is like the anger and the language that he's using to like inspire the people, which is very it's like full of conflict, and like the conflict at his rallies that was started, people pointing the finger at like his rhetoric, how that could have caused it, and I think that is something that's new in the election, definitely.
Yeah, the populism.
Yeah, definitely.
And both parties have huge populist movements going on. Republicans just happen to have multiple with the alt-right. The Tea Party, you could maybe say is populist.
No, they're ultra conservative.
Yeah, but you can maybe say that
Fringe sections of the party.
Yeah, yeah.
It does seem that both parties are significantly more weak than they have been in the past. Like they're very
That's why
split.
if Gary Johnson weren't the Libertarian candidate, someone who actually knew what Aleppo was,
or a leader,
we could totally be looking at a rise of a third party.
Yeah.
Right now, I saw Bill Weld go have an interview where he basically said, let's get the Libertarians to 5% so they can get federal funding. And almost saying that if you're down between Clinton and Trump, go Clinton.
Bill Weld has spoken out numerous times against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, he's looking for the vote for the Libertarians to try and get them as a larger party in the
They're the
long
largest
term.
they've been since the 1980s.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to get 5%?
the current polling has them at 5%. Now,
we'll see.
They're like
That's
hovering at
a
like 4.9, like 5. It's like it's really tight. As
probably
if they're
not.
gonna.
that's kind of wishy-washy. A lot of Gary Johnson supporters have gone to Trump, or at least that's what the polling data seems to suggest. As Gary Johnson goes down, Trump goes up. Now, Hillary Clinton doesn't seem to be too impacted.
No,
Well, she
all
wasn't,
of the
but-
voters that were split from Gary Johnson or from Trump went to Gary Johnson. So as Trump becomes more popular again among the Republican Party, the voters that went to Gary Johnson are starting going back to Trump.
But those in the Democratic Party who are supporting him aren't going back to Hillary because they're more of the Bernie Sanders supporters who just do not like the idea of a Hillary Clinton presidency, and will pretty much, it's a protest vote at this point. I don't think they.
I'd
serve a real
say
chance.
the idea of Bernie supporters going over to Trump is
No,
somewhat
not Trump. I
exaggerated.
meant Gary Johnson.
Oh, Gary Johnson. Yeah. Yeah. Or Jill Stein, the
Yeah.
Green Party
Yeah,
candidate.
where's she at in the polls?
A half
Still
a
at
percent.
1%.
She was doing okay, and then she thought nuclear power plants were where nuclear weapons were made, and then she just
Oh, she says a lot of things like that.
That's
yeah.
Well, she was arrested.
She also thinks that Wi-Fi causes cancer. Was
Yeah,
it?
it's
Awesome.
amazing. It's amazing if you look at the 4 candidates for president.
Real great candidates.
It's like it's honestly, I feel like they could have picked better people. Like I understand that it's not the choice because it's like the whole process of electing the president, but like it's amazing that Hillary and Trump ended up as the candidates. It's like
well,
I feel like if you went on the street and just pointed at random people, you could have
Yeah.
generally ended
With-
up.
In the words of Chris Levisi, Chris Levisi is our teacher club head. For those of you who don't know, in the words of Chris Levisi, Trump is the only candidate who could beat Hillary, and Hillary is the only candidate that could beat Trump.
well,
Or no, sorry.
Yeah.
It's Hillary could only win against Trump, and Trump could only win against Hillary. My bad.
yeah, exactly.
Misquoting our esteemed head.
so yeah, it's true that everyone's saying that it's fitting for these two candidates to be going up against each other. That like Republicans, a lot of Republicans would be kicking themselves right now. That a real Republican could probably beat Hillary, but a real Republican couldn't make it through the primary.
Yeah.
The way the primaries are, 'cause you have to be so far right. It was Jeb Bush that said you have to lose the primary to win the general, right?
That was
That's-
a quote from one of his aides, but yeah.
I mean, it's true. I wonder if you threw in someone, maybe not Ted Cruz, but you threw in like a John Kasich, a Jeb Bush on the ballot just for like polling and see where they'd stack up.
I think,
Evan McMullen.
Gavin McMullen.
I think
yeah.
pretty much any sane Democratic candidate could easily beat Trump, like be a
Yeah.
landslide. Any sane Republican candidate would beat Hillary in a landslide. So it's like, it's just amazing that they couldn't, like either party couldn't get it together enough to like.
Well, for most people, Hillary is a sane candidate, but a lot of people don't like her because she's viewed
Yeah.
as
But,
I don't want to say crooked because that's a Trump cred, but she's viewed as sort of corrupt
Yeah.
and greedy and
But
kind of detached from the
but-
people.
By sane, I mean more like a person who you can pick. There's definitely a lot of Democratic people, candidates out there that wouldn't have like the history or like past scandals that she's had that you could have picked. So it would have been much less easier for the Republican to like throw out attacks on her.
See, but the parties didn't want that, and that's one of the main things. Like, sure, would any other Republican beat Hillary in a landslide? Probably. And you could say the same thing for Democrats, but the people who are in the party picked them to represent their views best. And and
little less with the
it's the democracy at work,
with
as
the
it were.
Democrats. There are rumors that people at the head of the Democratic Party, Barack Obama, told Joe Biden not to get in the race. That it was Hillary Clinton's turn because she's technically probably the most qualified person in that party.
No, yes.
But with the Republicans, there was too many establishment candidates that all took away votes from each other. Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz was kind of an outsider. Chris Christie, Kasich, they were all establishment candidates that were fracturing each other's votes, and then Donald Trump with the populist movement rose to the top.
Yeah, like in the Democratic side, it was Hillary, Bernie, and
Lincoln Chafee,
O'Malley?
Martin O'Malley.
Look at
But
the
they
people
both
that,
got
um,
Webb.
Yeah, Jim Webb.
Yeah.
So, but they both of them. Like Bernie wasn't expected to be a threat until he became really popular with like college students. But Hillary pretty much just had the candidacy like since she started running. But I think that's really it's like it just shows the difference between like the Democratic and the Republican sides in this debate with like the fracturing and like the false unity. But like
False union is a really good word for the Democratic Party.
yeah.
A side note, what do you think a general election with Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders would look like?
I think Bernie would win.
Really?
I
Really?
think
Yeah.
Bernie appears sane enough. I think a lot of the older generation would eschew him because of their like experience with communism in the Soviet Union. Or not experience, but like views on communism in the Soviet Union. But I think that for the most part, for undecided voters, Bernie would seem okay enough to go over Trump.
But none of his proposals would get passed through Congress.
That's
Oh,
true.
never.
He's way
Well,
too
none of
far.
the
And-
candidates' proposals are going to get through Congress.
We
Yeah,
can talk
that's
about it later,
true.
but Bernie Sanders, I've seen polls that say like 60% of Americans wouldn't vote for a socialist and they therefore wouldn't vote for Bernie Sanders. I think in a Bernie election, he was a really good debater. I would like to see a debate between Bernie and Trump. I think that'd be interesting. But I think the base is just not there for him, for Bernie.
Yeah, no,
I
I
think there'd be
agree.
a lot of Democrats that would look at his experience in the Senate and the bills with his names on it and wouldn't go for him.
I think there's a huge faction in the Democratic Party that Obama belongs to and Clinton belongs to that are really centrist on the economic issues. Obama less so, obviously, but that really favor this more of like they call themselves progressives, and they favor sort of like a social liberalism is like the number one policy, and I think a lot of them would have a tough time getting behind Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders' main objectives is the economic reforms and especially the political reforms, which might upset the balance of progressive politics.
I just wonder if just looking ahead to 4 years from now, I'm just wondering if the same like populist movements on both sides, I wonder if they'll still be like present in the next election, or if they'll just like die out and it'll just become the establishment again.
Well, I think if Hillary wins, the Bernie faction is going to take over in the Democratic Party. I think that's a given.
I think that's a given no matter what. Just with the youth growing up, and you could probably say Bernie and Elizabeth Warren are both the heads of that faction. They both have a lot of support with the youth, and they're the people who are going to be growing up and voting.
But what happens in 10, 20 years from now when there is no Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders? Do you think someone will rise up and take their place?
It's hard to predict in 20 years.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
can't
because
even
it's the
predict
movement.
when this will
'cause
He does have a good point. A lot of the leaders of that faction, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, are from the old days of the Democratic Party when it was like pre-Ronald Reagan, where the Democrats were like a lot more far left than they are now. And like I think what John's trying to say is that the old guard is kind of dying off.
Yeah, and
The country as a whole is slowly becoming more and more centralist, though.
is
I
it?
feel like.
I would argue
I think
that
it's possible.
I would argue that the
it's
center's
becoming more
dying.
split.
I'm saying
Yeah.
I think there's a silent majority of people that are possibly in the center. Just with the way the media is and the way the primaries are, we only see the radicals on either side. But if you were to look at just someone, their own views, I feel like there's a lot of people who are economically moderate, socially progressive.
Yeah, I think that actually like a libertarian candidate could do really well in the next election because I think people are like the populism on both sides. I think it's just showing that people are fed up with the way that things are happening right now in like the media and the government. And I think that like a libertarian movement in 3 or 4 years could really take hold and like they could get like way more votes than they are now.
But to do that, the Libertarians would have to bypass either they would have to win as a third-party candidate, which is unlikely, or they'd have to bypass the establishment structures. So, for example, Ron Paul, who ran in 2012, had a huge fight with Mitt Romney over the primary, and there was a lot of establishment maneuvering that got Mitt Romney the nomination.
Well, they are a closed, they are a private organization. They can pick whoever they want as their nominee.
The thing about the Libertarian Party is there's a lot of people who identify as Libertarian who I don't feel like would really be a Libertarian. Their platform has things like, no, you don't have to wear a helmet. No more helmet regulations.
Yeah.
A Libertarian Party is a fun idea, but a candidate who supports the libertarian ideas that people care about, like gay marriage or,
Fiscal
like
conservatism.
fiscal conservatism, rising through either of the parties, could go places if they got through a primary. I feel like they need. I don't feel like a libertarian with the current libertarian platform could actually win if people really dug into and saw what that platform is.
Well, the party purists in the Libertarian Party are the people like that, but I think most of the people who come to the Libertarian Party are like Gary Johnson in that they're a lot more moderate. Yeah, I don't think Bill Weld was on board with the Libertarians. I think he was there to help out Gary Johnson.
He was there to make the ticket respectable in some way. I feel like if he was the actual presidential nominee, they'd be a hell of a lot further along than they are now.
Awesome. Just we look at like Bill Weld, John Kasich, both very established, popular governors in their respective state, and they're kind of both like the laughing stock of this election. People are like, oh, Bill Weld's on the Libertarian ticket. Oh, they're pulling out 4%. Or John Kasich won like 2 states in the Republican primary. They're a joke, and it's really unfair. Those are the people who, in a perfect world, would be like the individual parties or one of the parties' nominees.
I think that just goes to show that this election proves that the world is not perfect.
It's not perfect.
Well, I would serve to disagree. I don't know. As a Republican, I think that, as an outsider Republican, I think that a John Kasich presidency would not be my favorite thing. I mean, I feel if I were to vote for anyone outside of Donald Trump, it would have been Ted Cruz and then maybe a Rand Paul, maybe one of those two, but I couldn't see an establishment candidate getting my vote, really, in a primary or general.
Well, Rand Paul is obviously the Libertarian head of the Republicans now that Ron Paul's sort of retired. Would you see yourself voting for Gary Johnson?
I do not, simply because I don't think he has a chance to win, and I'm...
But like on an ideological thing, if you were barred from supporting Trump.
Yeah, I'd say I'd vote for him. I think I think he's more centrist than me, but I'd still cast my vote for him.
I actually think that a lot of Republicans would be more into voting for Hillary if she didn't get dragged a little more left by Bernie's ideas.
Yeah, but she had to go left to get her own party.
But she was pretty moderate when she started out.
You can't win a general election without at least 85% of your base. And the way that the Democratic Party was fractured after the primary with Bernie, she needed to go left.
Well, we're running out of time, so why don't we bring ourselves to the final question. Based on what the polling data says now and what people are thinking is going to happen, do you see Trump winning? And what is the path to it? We're going to start with John.
I see him winning. I see him gaining ground in places like Colorado, Florida. I think he's ahead at the moment. North Carolina, he's a little waning there, but I think there's still enough time for him to pull ahead. I think in like places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, it's tightening a little bit. She's still obviously 5 points ahead. But I think if he campaigns at the current rate he's campaigning right now, where he's doing like three or so campaign events in different states every day, I think he has a chance of getting people out to vote, because I think that's his main strength right now, because his popularity numbers are way up there. They're highest I think they've been this campaign cycle.
It's a great 40% approval.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's great, but I'm saying he's doing pretty well, as it were.
Also, not to interrupt, but one of Trump's large strengths is rallying people up and getting them out to the polls.
Definitely.
Well, do you have a different take on that, Jack? Or
I'd go with what John's saying there. I mean, I do think he's climbing in several states, such as like Florida, swing states that he needed to win. to get the nomination or the presidency. But I do think that Hillary pretty much has it locked up. I do think that he can gain and maybe like put in a scare like a couple days before the election, or maybe even like the beginning stages of like when voting actually comes in. I think it can be a little bit tight, but I do think that Hillary pretty much has it won at this point.
What do you think?
I think Hillary's going to win. I think Trump's going to win Florida. A lot of the early voting numbers show more Republican turnout, and they're probably voting for Trump. He's not going to win North Carolina. The early voting shows a lot of Democrats. A lot of young Democrats in that state are very mad at Pat McCrory, and they're showing their disapproval on the election ballot. So Hillary's going to win North Carolina. She's going to win Pennsylvania. She's up there. She's going to continue to win Maine, New Hampshire, Colorado. I think she is going to win. I think Trump's going to win Ohio. But Trump needs the big three: Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, and I think he's not going to get those. And he needs those to begin his path to 270. And based on the popular vote polls, he is climbing, but I don't think he's going to get enough to win the swing states necessary.
Well, I think Hillary's going to win because if she wins Nevada or Arizona or any of the other states, she has the election in the bag based on all the states that she's currently polling in.
Isn't Trump up in Nevada by like 5 points or something?
It's close. It was a blue state.
Mm-hmm.
One of those states that people thought were going to be more of a swing state, like Virginia, and it's close now.
Oh, I saw a recent poll. I thought it said that he was winning in Nevada.
He might be winning now.
Yeah.
Well, very interesting. Marcus, do you have any final thoughts, or
No,
you think we've covered it?
I
So-
think we've done well.
So based on what we think Hillary's going to win this election. That's
It's all-
our.
John, do you think Hillary's gonna win?
I would be surprised.
It's all
honestly.
whatever the news cycle right now is anti-Hillary because of the FBI investigation, but all that needs to happen is Trump says some outrageous off-script thing, and that changes the narrative. And
I
is
don't
pro-Hillary.
think that's going to happen. I think right now he's realized he's on his last leg, as it were, and if he were to lose this election, he'd become pretty much a laughing stock among the mainstream media.
He is a laughing stock
Yeah.
among the mainstream media,
It's also
John.
true.
He keeps saying outrageous things that offends everyone.
I don't know about offends everyone, but I'd say right now he has a large portion of the population that think the media is crooked and stupid
Well,
and liars.
They're not crooked and stupid, but they are pro-Hillary.
on that note, I think we'll wrap it up. So this has been Coas Political Society's Open Forum. Thank you for tuning in.